750,000 students in middle to high income families transfer, withdraw, or fail every year. And then what happens is they find themselves in situations that they just weren't prepared for, or an institution that was not a good fit. Because when you withdraw, fail, or transfer, might as well light $15,000 on fire.
For parents of ADHD kids who are in that place in life where they're considering college, how do you approach that?
This business is built by someone with ADD, right? Me. Which is wonderful. It lends itself to our clients that find us naturally because they're like, ooh, I like this. This is different. Something about this system clicks with my kiddo. And just so happens to be that the kiddo has ADD. When we talk to clients, particularly if they've been newly diagnosed, it's like, congratulations, welcome to the club, let's go.
Let's talk a little bit about your own ADHD journey. So when did it get on your radar? When were you diagnosed?
In terms of my ADD, that was diagnosed actually early on in my adolescence. It was re-diagnosed as an adult. I started to have more clients and it was exhausting. I quickly realized like my days are chaos. I'm exhausted at the end of the day and my family's suffering as a result. And I can't do this anymore until I make a big change.
Today's guest is Evan Moore. He is the owner and founder of Real Frequency, a college consulting company built to bring clarity to the chaos of college admissions. An ADHD entrepreneur, Evan helps families navigate 4 key areas: college life, academics, finances, and environment, so students apply with confidence and zero burnout. He also teaches strategic thinking at Gonzaga University and is known for his no-fluff, real-world approach. Hey, it's Steve. Real quick before we begin, the single biggest thing I've learned about succeeding as an ADHD entrepreneur is that everything boils down to mastering your weeks. So if ADHD is making business harder than it needs to be, I've got something that can help. Grab my free weekly ADHD dashboard. It's a free, simple, but powerful tool to help you stay focused, organized, and in control of your week. The link is in the description below. Welcome back to the podcast, ADHD Entrepreneur Accelerator. And today, I am super excited to have somebody I've had the pleasure to get to know over the last 6 months. Somebody who's a member of my ADHD Entrepreneur Accelerator program, and somebody who's doing a lot of good in the world. Evan Moore is the founder and CEO of Real Frequency, a college consulting company built by an ADHD entrepreneur who traded the stiff office and admissions suit for t-shirts, backward hats, and a space with graffiti on the walls and purpose in the air. He and his team help families navigate the college journey without losing their minds, guiding students through 4 key pillars: college life, academics, finances, and environment. The goal is simple: launch with clarity, confidence, and no burnout. Evan also teaches strategic thinking at Gonzaga University in Washington, where he brings real talk, sharp thinking, and zero fluff to the classroom. Obsessed with turning chaos into clarity, from building college lists that make sense to essays that hit, to submitting apps before deadlines, the team at Real Frequency helps students and families stop surviving the process and start owning it. Welcome to the podcast, Evan. It's great to have you here.
Thanks, Steve. We're awesome to be here. It's awesome. It's great.
Where in the world do we find you today?
Headquarters for Real Frequency is in Spokane, Washington.
Yes.
We are nationwide, so we have employees all over the country. So,
right. The Great Pacific Northwest.
Yes, which you are very accustomed to yourself.
Yeah, down here in Portland. Not too far. And how long have you been in the Northwest? Has this been something your whole life, or did you come from someplace else?
I'm a transplant. I grew up in Connecticut and East Coast, so couldn't be further away. And by design, right? I do, I'm an East Coast kid at heart, but I moved after my undergrad and University of New Hampshire, and sowed my wild oats in California for a little while and met my wife, who is from Spokane. And as we all know, when you want to start a family, you probably need to be near family. And we choose Spokane over East Coast where my family is. And great choice because it's phenomenal. I love it up here. And that was dang near 18 years ago.
It's interesting when you grow up on the East Coast. I did as well down in Pennsylvania. And you go through your young adult life, and the East Coast is so prominent in your thinking. And the West Coast, especially the Pacific Northwest, is sort of this place out there in the middle, just out there, right? It's not California. It's just, and then you go out there to the West Coast, and I did the same thing, like in San Francisco after undergrad, and it was just like, oh, I understand why my parents didn't show me this.
Ah,
I really enjoyed the West Coast way of being.
as did I. And my ADD was
Yeah.
on fire then because there was a lot of extrinsic motivation and enticements pulling at me. And I definitely took full advantage of a lot of it before I actually had to grow up and be a real human being. So, yeah. It was good times. Good times.
I feel you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so tell us more about Real Frequency. What was the spark? What led to you starting this company? What was the background?
I was in college admissions. After my graduate degree from Gonzaga, I started teaching, and I got roped into the administration side of things because my awesome dean, Cassie Silvis, saw me as a leader, and she said, "Hey, you make a real impact in the classroom one-on-one. How would you like to make departmental and statewide impact for your people, for the culture, for initiatives?" And I couldn't say no. The money was better, and having some control over decisions and programs that we have was really enticing for me. So I took it, and as I grew through that position, I realized. There's large organizations I was working with and for, and institutions and colleges, and it's hard to make change. It's really hard to make change. And the way that I think and the way that I behave, and I'm sure we'll get into that, is that I operate at 100 miles an hour dead, and meaning I'm all in or I'm all out. And I have very little room and tolerance and patience for anything in between. I think you've seen that with me, and probably in the last year since we've been working together. And it can be intense. So if I'm not satisfied with the way things are going, or things aren't happening enough, I tend to take things into my own control, and I decided to do so by starting my own business. And the freedom, right? This freedom we talk about.
It's so much the story of some of the ADHD entrepreneurs who, were working a job, developing skills, developing a certain brilliance, and seeing a certain pain in the market, and suddenly just felt like, hey, the situation that you were in didn't fit who you were anymore, and the way to do it was to create the thing on your own. So what was that? Was there an epiphany moment that you had?
Yeah. One thing was attrition within our program and in colleges, really statewide and nationwide, really started to kind of bother me. If you asked me 15 years ago that I would be, or 20 years, well, actually I wasn't at 15 years ago, but let's say 25 years ago, that I would be doing this or care so much, I would have told you you're crazy. But just the way things had rolled out, and realizing that, hey, I'm really good at a few things here. You only need to be really good at a couple things in life to be truly successful. I just kind of happened to stumble into it and find my strengths in it. And I wanted more of it, but I also have a penchant, and I care about people. We care about families. We care about the process of that I was working in, which is high school to college transition, and successfully completing college with engagement, joy, fulfillment, and a return on investment.
So tell me, you mentioned attrition as the big pain point. Tell me more about that, because I don't. Yeah,
big pain point.
More.
Yeah. 750,000 students in middle to high income families transfer, withdraw, or fail every year. Meaning these families are, well supported, many of them together, still married in a way. And then what happens is they find themselves, these students and these families, in situations that they just weren't prepared for, or an institution that was not a good fit, right? They hadn't had the right support or the right information or the right focus, and gave priorities to their college life, the academics, the finance, and the environment piece that's so important, and didn't realize it until after they had agreed to go to a certain college or institution and hit the ground running. And 6 months later, they find out that they're in the wrong place. And attrition's big. It's big for families, because when you withdraw, fail, or transfer, you might as well light $15,000 on fire. That's before the transfer actually happens. That's all the expenses of moving and all the stuff that you had to buy, and now you have to pull it all back and press reset, and time lost. But also colleges don't like it either, because now they have to fulfill a spot that they had planned for being filled for 4 years. So there's always this tug and pull as far as colleges wanting to make the right selection for their own freshman class. Every student that they take in is a risk, but they want to mitigate as much risk as possible, which is why we have applications, which is why we have essays, which is why we try to get to know a student and as admissions officers as quickly and as well as possible so we can make a good decision to say, hey, this kid's actually going to accept our acceptance, show up in the fall, and then continue to persist for 4 years and graduate on time, by the way. And that's a big predictor of success and a number that colleges really care about. All that, if they don't do it right, where they lose students or students transfer or they fail, it affects their percentages and numbers and their bottom line, which also affects their ability to borrow from the government and be financially eligible to receive payments from their students. So it's money motivated, but it's also like now we got a human aspect motivation. Our goal is zero attrition one day somehow, because we do it right. We do it from the start. We start early. And I couldn't do that as an administrator. I could only do so much when we'd receive students. So I know I needed to go way upriver and start earlier when a student is a sophomore, junior in high school, to go through our process, our very systematic plan process, to be sure that where they go, they're going to stay.
Right. So that's fascinating because it is such a huge, especially now with college costs being so expensive, is that if you do end up going to the wrong place for some of the wrong reasons, and it's a huge cost on everybody's part in both what you're saying, both the financial, but also the kind of time and opportunity cost on both sides of the equation. So what was missing from the process that you were able to bring, once you got outside of the admissions kind of seat, what were you able to bring? And so how do you bring people through it?
Yeah, thanks. That great question, because, we flip everything on its head. We want to give our clients permission to prioritize anything about this process in any school we deem and they deem that they'll thrive in. We want to prioritize those things at the top of their list, whatever it may be, whether it's location, whether it's the stuff that they're doing outside of academics, whether it's academics themselves. But we know that when we hone in on those things, we can provide a list of colleges that are going to fulfill them, and then they'll be able to engage. And the biggest predictor of success in this world is your ability to engage. So we know, regardless of what name is going to be on the degree when you graduate, it all depends on the fact of how you leverage and utilize the time you're there. And if you're happy and you're connected and you're engaged, you're going to have that success. I couldn't do that at the administration level. We didn't have the time. I can't turn back the clock for a lot of our students that were there that found themselves, didn't know where they came from, didn't know why they were there, and didn't know where they were going. Right. And so that was the epiphany. I'm like, if I'm going to do this, I have to be a solopreneur and start this thing on my own.
That's the beauty of the ADHD brilliance too. Just like having that impulse to just go and do it. So when you're thinking about it, so one of the things I was super impressed with when I learned more about what you guys do at Real Frequency was just the number of different kind of factors that you ask people to consider, students to consider in terms of the match. Like people think, is it academics and cost or location? But it feels like, if I recall, there's quite a few more factors that you encourage people to consider.
Many more factors. Yeah, it's easy to get sucked into the big marketing dollars that many of these universities have that are trying to entice people to apply. So they have more of a pool to choose from to fulfill their freshman class and be sure they can fill it with the right people. It's up to the families, it's bestowed upon them to do the research, to go through the process, to be sure that it is checking boxes, not just what those institutions are feeding them, but things that are really, truly important to a student. And we focus on that. That's why we have those 4 pillars: the college life, the academics, the finance, and the environment. They all have to align. And if any of them are kind of out of joint, then you're at higher risk for failure, withdrawal, or transfer. And so in college life, we talk a lot about Greek life, about sports, club sports. If you played high school soccer or basketball or baseball, I always ask our clients right when we start, hey, do you want to play collegiate soccer, baseball, basketball? They're like, oh, no, I'm not that good. I was like, oh, I wasn't talking about the D1, D2, D3 NAIA level. I was talking with a club. And many of them are unaware that even exists, don't know that those things actually exist until they get there, which is, to me, it's a huge misfortune because it's a missed opportunity to decide, hey, this could be within the decision realm of a school based on the people that are in the club, based on the fact that they have a competitive basketball team. I want to try out for it, and without the pressure of having to play for the NCAA. What happens is we know that people that are active, we're very active here at Real Frequency. We love sports. We know that not only is it great to be in competitive sports, but it also aids in the assistance of reducing depression, reducing anxiety. You're moving your body, but also the culture, the people that you connect with when you're part of those clubs, whether it be basketball, baseball, football, whether it be chess club, whether it be reading club, I don't care, dancing, singing, they got it all. Frisbee, you can crochet, they have got it all.
Crochet is awesome.
Crochet is great. I see it all the time. We go to the beach or the lake, and these young people are literally busting this stuff out, right?
I know, that's amazing.
They have clubs for that. And you may be surprised to know that some of those clubs are the biggest factor why some of these students persist even through hard times and stay at a school or university even through some of the really tough times the first 6 months that they're out of the home, which is when they're at the highest risk. So we're like, well, that's a predictor of success when you connect with a club and you connect with your culture and your people. So why wouldn't that be at the top of the list? Just alongside prestige and academics and the cost. So yes, we consider that very important.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Especially with, as I understand that kind of loneliness and that alienation that happens sometimes as young people go out into the world on their own for the first time, where they're like finding their way, finding other people who they can connect with on whatever level makes sense for them. Just seems like that would be a really powerful way to, like you said, like withstand the inevitable kind of challenges that come from learning how to adult for the first time. I had, it really, as I'm thinking through it and listening to you, one of the things that I get on my newsletter when I ask people in my ADHD Entrepreneurs newsletter, why they joined. And a lot of people are joining because they have kids who are ADHD and they're looking for things that help them, that might be of help for their kids. A question that I'd be really interested to get your take on is, for parents of ADHD kids who are in that place in life where they're considering college, what do you like? How do you approach that? Like, what would your advice to them be as somebody who's seen this from both sides, being the admissions person and being somebody who facilitates people getting into college?
3 sides, because I went through college.
Right, exactly.
I had to
as
do
ADHD.
it too, as an ADHD. And, my parents are great too. I largely drove that situation, and looking back, knowing where I am now, and now I'm far more aware of it. We talk about that later, of course, of how to harness it. I didn't have kind of that acumen and that intelligence and self-awareness at the time. So I certainly would have done things differently, I think, in many ways, if I had someone like Real Frequency, me, helping them through the process, which drives a lot of the decision-making that I'm posed with on a daily basis of how we operate. This business is built by someone with ADD, right? Me. And we've got 17 employees. We're growing by the month, which is phenomenal. I'm always wanting to grow faster. As you say, hey, easy does it. I want to do everything right now, tomorrow, but we only do so much.
ADHD brains do. There is no, there's only
too.
It's the great wall of now.
Which is wonderful. It lends itself to our clients that find us naturally and organically because they're like, ooh, I like this. This is different. This is something about this system clicks with my kiddo. And just so happens to be that the kiddo has ADD. Well, of course it's going to click with an ADD, ADHD kid because it was built by an ADD, ADHD kid. So, right. And it was like kind of an unintended benefit to this. And I didn't initially set out to, target families with ADD, ADHD kiddos, but they just naturally found us, and then they would refer their other friends and families that had kiddos with ADD. And that part of what we do has really helped my business grow, just kind of by proxy, just because that's how we operate. Now, in terms of advice, right? It's really, it comes naturally, I guess, when we are faced with families that have ADD, ADHD, and they're like, how do we get through this process? I just truly speak from my heart, from my head, and from our processes because I know it works for someone with ADD, ADHD. And a lot of it has to do with they want to apply to all the schools. They don't want to miss any opportunities. They tend to be a little bit more excitable, right, at the thought of these opportunities, but also overwhelmed and succumb to this, paralyzation of like, oh my gosh, I don't even know where to start. So that's going to stop us. We have a saying that it's typically the start that stops somebody, right? And I still suffer from it. That's why I utilize you, Steve, so much, because I just need that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Accountability. I got to do stuff as a CEO and business, entrepreneur that I don't want to do. We all do, but we got to.
Right.
And we are that for families and for ADD kiddos when it comes to this application process. So they don't miss things. And they are aware of everything. And they can go through this process with a clear head, with feeling supported, less anxiety, and knowing that someone else is alongside the ride with them and giving them permission to ask questions that are important to them that they normally wouldn't. Hey, I don't like the rain. My family wants me to go to school in Seattle or Portland or San Francisco, right? We know that. Should I even bring it up? I'm like, hell yes, you should bring that up. Absolutely, right? Like, I don't want to see another raindrop. Well, maybe we should be looking in the South. Well, parents are worried about cost. We don't know until we start searching and looking. And there's so many programs out there that can make out-of-state schools so affordable for families. They just don't know, right? And the overwhelm without someone that's guiding them would probably prevent them from ever knowing.
Right. And I think the huge win there, it seems like if that can be part of the process at the beginning as the school is being chosen, then when they get there, then they're set up much better for success. And I imagine even things like what kind of support do they have for ADHD students or neurodiverse students would be a question they could ask.
Yeah, that's a big one because, you've got advocates in high school, elementary school, middle school, high school, and your parents and your counselors. You can receive accommodations through 504s or IEPs. What's interesting is that when you go into college, it becomes far more of a self-advocacy point that you really need to be comfortable with and talking about what you need as a student, because mom and dad aren't always going to be there. But that is definitely something that when we pinpoint is something they're going to need as far as support's concerned, we start those conversations really early with the college. And by the way, we utilize that in the metric in their decision making, meaning, all right, how robust is their support services for students? And with disability support services, that's usually what they call it. Have you gone into the DSS? And did you shake someone's hand on a tour? Were they inviting? Were they cool? Were they nice? Could you see yourself going there when you need help?
Right.
If you
and DSS is Department of Student Services.
Disability Support Services. Yeah.
Okay, usually, that's good. See, I already didn't know what that is, so I wanted to make sure everybody did.
And now they've changed the name in many different situations because Disability Support Services, it does lend itself to us thinking, oh, it's people with major impairments, disabilities, and handicaps. We don't use that terminology anymore. And frankly, I'm glad we don't, because all encompassing, we'd like to provide service and support for anyone with ADD, even if it's mild. That might be a deterrent for someone that's like, oh man, I'm having a really hard time focusing and getting my stuff together and I'm overwhelmed. Yeah. But that's for people with serious problems. But I say any ADD is a serious problem. But we need to make that problem a benefit, magnify it, because it can be a strength. We just need to know how to do that.
Right. With the right support.
Yeah, with the right support. And so, someone that's been through it too.
Right? Yeah, exactly. And so you being able to help them identify which colleges will be most supportive or which opportunities will be most supportive. I think it's a factor that maybe isn't as thought about as kind of the more common, prestige and location and things like that. So let's talk a little bit about your own ADHD journey. So when did it get on your radar? When were you diagnosed? Tell us your story when it comes to ADHD.
Yeah, one of my favorite subjects, because I think the more we talk about it, the more we normalize it, the more people can associate and assimilate with it. One thing that I've noticed is the more I talk, the more people are like, oh, yeah, maybe we should have gotten Johnny and Sally evaluated. Or, oh, crap, I probably have ADD, ADHD, and I handed it down to Johnny and Sally, right? And we've had that. Those are moments of celebration for us, particularly me, when they go through our process and they're like, we should get evaluation. I said, yes, you should. We can't do it ourselves. We're not licensed to do so, but we have referrals. And when that comes back, they're like, yep, go figure. This whole time we should have known. Hey, it's like, hey, it's never too late. First of all, now we have something to work with. So that's a huge win. In terms of my ADD, that was diagnosed early on in my adolescence. Okay? I think it was 7 or 8. Right. I can remember being treated. I remember the Ritalin. I remember the remediation when it came to my education, and I remember the shame. I remember I was mortified, embarrassed. I felt stupid. I was really slowed in my learning, right? When you take someone out of mainstream and you put them in the resource room, back what they called it back in the 80s, you don't learn at a fast pace, right? They slow everything down for you. And frankly, we've come a long way since then, right? They didn't know a whole lot. They thought that was what would be needed. What I found out later, and I didn't find this out until college, is that I need to learn at a faster rate. I need information quickly. I listen to my podcast at 1.25, 1.5, or else I can't listen. Hopefully someone in here is like, oh my God, I'm listening to this at 1.25 right now. Holy shit, maybe I have ADD, right? So I pushed back as a kid through middle school. I said, I can't be a part of this. It's ruining me socially. I feel terrible. I want to just be a normal kid. I want to be mainstreamed. And my parents did as much as they could to make that happen, with some remediation and tutor all the way through. But I struggled. It was that initial shock and feeling and knowing that I'm not as smart as my friends. All right. And that's at least what I thought at the time. And the first thing when we talk to clients, particularly if they've been newly diagnosed, is like, congratulations, welcome to the club. Let's go. Let's do this. Like, this is phenomenal. We have something to work with. We have something to magnify. You know how many strengths we're about to pinpoint for you? We're going to leverage that interesting brain of yours that thinks so differently and creatively aside from everybody else that's normal. It's not cool to be normal anymore. Some of the greatest, brightest, best CEOs in the world are ADD, diagnosed or not. They are. I see those tendencies, and certainly it perpetuates them and propels them to success if you have access.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest thing. I'm like, hey, I felt like I had an anchor around my neck that I was pulling around, that I was this dumb ding dong walking around, never going to make something of myself.
Yeah.
So
no, I totally get that from the age that you got diagnosed. And I just want to call out that I'm a fan of all brains, normal, ADHD,
Yeah.
neurodiverse.
Oh yeah, for sure.
They're all cool. But what I'm
We're
curious.
cooler. Come on, we're
Yeah.
cooler. Let's go. I'm gonna say it. You don't have to. You have to be.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I am an equal brain appreciator. So what I would, what I'm curious about is, so you had this time in your life where you're like, oh my gosh, I've got this problem, I've got this challenge, I'm not as smart. What was the turning point? Where were you finally able to say, oh, wait a minute, no, I just got a different brain and I just got to use it the right way and it'll be good.
I think it was in my undergrad when I needed to really buckle down, and it was up to me. I like I said, 100 miles an hour dead. So if I'm doing something, I'm all in. It's like the business, right? You know how intense I am about what we do, about building our culture here with employees and clients. It's intensity. So I hit my undergrad with that intensity, and I actually did really well, far better than I thought I would, and probably far better than a lot of people that knew me thought I would, which is, I was, getting 3.7, 3.8 GPA. They're like, this is crazy. I didn't think you'd make it for the first semester. And then I, decided, hey, graduate school is probably something that I could tackle. And I did that as well. And this is still before I started really understanding who I was and how to manage it. It was kind of just going through, testing out, feeling it out, and being very cognizant of it and being far more self-aware. Yeah, it was definitely in my head. I didn't have words to put with how I was performing and acting and what would make me a better student. Sleep is really important, right? Some of this stuff came naturally. It didn't bite me in the butt until I became a business owner, though.
Yep.
So no, we've just talked all the way from when I was in adolescence to graduate school, which all of those things are very structured programs. I went from a very structured program, even working as an administrator, still not treating my ADD, ADHD the way that I do now, structured program, into something that is completely unstructured and like wild west. When you start a business in your own, like, it's the unconscious incompetence. I thought I knew I could do it. I just didn't know anything about anything. I didn't know how to run payroll and file taxes and how to hire somebody and have all these HR, like what? And I realized, I was like, oh, just focus on what I do well. And I did. I started to grow. I started to have more clients. I spent enormous amount of time working with very few clients because I needed to focus, and it was exhausting. I grew to the point where I finally hired an employee because I just couldn't handle it all on my own, which is a good thing. But also I quickly realized, like, my days are chaos. I'm exhausted at the end of the day, and my family's suffering as a result. And I can't do this anymore until I make a big change. That came January, after the year and a half into this. We've been doing this about 8 years. So January is a tough time for me because I have seasonal affective disorder. Call it real or not, I just know that I'm like, this sucks. I'm so tired and depressed. And I remember coming to my wife, and I had tears in my eyes. I'm like, I'm so tired. I can't focus. And at the time, I have a good friend. His name's Brian Campbell. He's a neuropsychologist here in town. And we went out to lunch. And I just told him what was going on. And he's like, have you ever been evaluated for ADD? I was like, oh yeah, as a kid, I have that. He's like, what are you doing to treat it? I was like, well, I mean, I'm an adult now. Isn't that something you grow out of or you get better at? He's like, dude, you do not have to be struggling like this. So we went through 3 months of very intensive testing. And as an adult, it hit different, man. It was like things started to like, oh my gosh, yes, I do that. Oh, are you a procrastinator? Oh yeah, obviously. I mean, a lot of us are, but in the detail in which they were asking me, I'm like, oh Jesus, this is crazy. So I was re-diagnosed as an adult. And I took it very seriously. I poured into the research. I wanted to know everything about it. And frankly, all the good things too. It's like, why does my brain do this to me? What happened? How is this my thing and not everybody's thing?
Right.
And Brian put it in such a great way. Is just how we use different parts of our brain to process information, and it just looks different than most people, which is why it lends itself to creativity, and why you're such a good problem solver, and why you're so creative with families, why you're overly empathetic in many ways, which is a good thing, but can be a bad thing sometimes. And it's, oh my gosh, okay. What do I need to do to maintain this so I don't spin off the rails? And by the way, I'm not perfect. Steve, you've seen me spin off the rails. It still happens.
It's always a work in progress. Right?
Always. Oh,
yeah.
This is lifelong, man.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I want to, just everybody, this isn't something you're cured from. It is something that we manage, and then we need to magnify and leverage. And I do that with medication, with sleep, with exercise. I definitely, since being with you, Steve, give honor to shutting down, because if I don't shut work down, I will shut down. And if if the captain of the boat's shutting down and then just the boat's still going, man, like not
a good situation.
No, you're gonna crash right into an iceberg, bro. So those are the things that I really implore, especially with my employees too. I know since some of our employees have joined us, they've been evaluated and they've been diagnosed with ADD, which I was like, oh, makes the most sense why I like you so much, and why we're so creative. We have such a fun time, right? So when we see a client come in with these struggles and with these questions and thoughts, it's always like, how are we going to be able to shut down when we need to shut down? How are we going to motivate you and keep you going when there's deadlines looming, and then be cognizant of how you behave and how you act. And then we work with it. That's why we're able to get through so much of this, so much of the rigmarole and the chaos that comes with college applications and essays and scholarship applications and activities and aggregating all of it.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like the kind of paying attention to the importance of the self-care, the big four, I call it, is the sleep, movement, medications, exercise. And not everybody takes medications, nor does it make sense for everybody. Everybody's neurochemistry is different, but just those four things and just being intentional about those things sounds like that's something that's really helped you. Is there other things that have been really helpful for you in, as you've navigated the ADHD? Sounds like just even learning more and understanding how it all works has been pivotal as well.
Yeah. That the learning piece is really important. I don't know if you'd be surprised. Maybe you see this with some of your other clients, that when they come to you with this, and what does that diagnosis actually say, and what does it actually mean? And many people don't educate themselves to that level. And I'm like, oh my gosh, no, that'll happen with clients that come to us. I'm like, oh, you have an accommodation now because you have ADD. What's on the accommodation for you to assist you in your learning aids? And they're like, oh, I'm not sure. There was something about extra time on tests. And I'm like, this is one of the most important documents you have in your educational journey. I not only I would memorize the diagnosis, right? And what behaviors trigger action, right? What behaviors trigger inaction? And then what's on those accommodations? Because I need to know that too for my own business, how I operate. That's when you and I first met. That's what I needed. I was like, I know I need an accountability system, and this is how I operate. These are the triggers that you'll see from me when things kind of go off the rails. And you've seen it, right? If I disappear for a couple of days because I've got so much going on, I just can't sit down and sit down for our body doubling. Like, that's a problem, right? Right. And then it's a matter of pulling back in and saying, okay, reset. All right, we found ourselves again, and get back on track. But so critical to know that diagnosis, know ADD, know why we operate and do the things that we do. Yeah.
Yeah. I encounter a lot of folks who are just getting understanding this about themselves, and they get the classic diagnose and prescribe. But they get a diagnosis, they get a prescription, and that's all they get. But they don't really understand how, like, all these different behavioral patterns and how they tie in. And it has been fascinating to watch your journey since you joined us in late last year in the accelerator. And and I think it's evolved over time because you've seen, like, I know there's been times when you haven't been able to make it to co-working, and I know that you're under it. And then recently it feels like you haven't been able to make it as much to co-working because there's a lot of good stuff happening that you have to get on top of. And it's two different vibes. So it's like, it's just fascinating, the energy, how it can change once you start making progress and building that momentum. And yeah, so I'm curious, you've been in the accelerator since the end of last year, and it's been it's just been a pleasure to get to know you and to support you in business and life. And I'm just curious, what's been your experience, and specifically, what do you think about the parts of the accelerator that have helped you the most?
Yeah. And thanks. It's also been a real pleasure. I'm super gifted and appreciative of having come across you and reading your newsletters and then reaching out and then joining the accelerator. What I really like about it, not just the accountability piece, which we talked about, but the fact that I'm with others, right? And I've talked about this with my friends who are like, what's this thing? That none of them are ADD, ADHD, at least diagnosed. I'm like, it's like a support group, it's like, and then you show up to these body doubling sessions and there's people from all over the world, right? In all different stages and phases of their businesses, some multi-million dollar businesses, some people just left their job and as starting out like I did 8 years ago. And we're all there for the same reason. And the things that each one of those entrepreneurs talk about, whether it's day one on their brand new venture with their, fresh and shiny LLC, or if it's day 5,000 with their Fortune 500 company, the problems are the same, right? There's just different size. The angst and the issues and the blocks that they experience mentally or physically, or the issues they're working through with employees or themselves, it's the same. Take out the annual income and take out the big names. It's all of us in the same room, and we all wear the same badge, right? And we're all trying to solve for the same thing, which is how are we going to do good in this world, do good for ourselves and our employees and our clients, right? Give grace to ourselves first and foremost, because we're our hardest on ourselves, of course, right? And then, as we say at Real Frequency, do it with a gangster mentality, right? It's like we're all in, like fight or die, let's go. And I think that's my favorite part of it, and all told, really, truly. Yeah, and the fact that you're there too, hanging out with your jazzy voice.
As the community has grown, it's just been fascinating to see that we're all working at two levels, right? We're all working at, hey, we've got to work with our ADHD brains. And we're actually, like, a guy started the first co-working session today, and I could just see him, like, he sort of came in and said his first time, sort of try to get the feel of it. But then he got the warm welcome, and he got that sense of, oh, everybody gets my brain. Like, I don't get to be in many rooms where people are like, oh yeah, how'd your brain work so far today? And people are like, oh, it went good. Or they went, well, I went down a little side quest or something. And you see that, I almost see a physical relief from people when they get in there, like, oh my gosh. So that accountability and companionship, I think, is so important. And you're right. And then we're all working at that business level, because the what businesses need fundamentally, having a real clear picture of the right 10x customer, having a stupidly good offer, and being able to consistently get those people to your offer is we all got to figure it out in business.
You really touched on something that's really critical in this, and also something that, like, it makes me feel confident and warm, is when I am within those meetings and I am able to share some of my transgressions mentally, or the fact I got distracted during our co-working, and I was able to be honest about it with people and them not judge me, or better, they're not there to say, maybe you should do this instead, right? I think us ADDers are so afraid to be honest about the fact that we've been distracted through this very important task that we've set out to do and then we want to do perfectly and we want to spend all the time in the world and energy on, but we got pulled away from it. To us, that it's kind of a little bit of failure. And if we share that with somebody, they'll be like, oh, I have an answer for you. Have you tried this? Or you should do this. We don't want that. What happens in these body doubling meetings when someone is honest and is like, oh, I totally got on Instagram. I forgot. Like, okay, I'm going to be better this next 25 minutes and I'm going to stick to the task. Everyone's like, yeah. Oh yeah. Been there, done that. Jedi did it too. Right. So, and then we move on. And that allows us to recenter as opposed to get within ourselves and make it even harder to start that thing or restart that thing that we stopped doing because we got distracted. And if there's people out there that don't understand what we're talking about right now, I guarantee that there are people that do. And if they're not ADHD diagnosed, then perhaps maybe they should get out there and talk to the doctor.
Yeah, and just for those who aren't aware of what the co-working is or body doubling, it's basically we show up on Zoom. I host them every day, 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. Eastern. And we just go around and either say out loud or put it into the chat what we're working on, set a clock, go on mute, and we work. And there's something magical about it. We get stuff done, and that starts to really compound over time. So it's amazing. So I'm so glad that you're part of it, Evan, and it's just been great to get to know you both as a business person and as a human being. So it's been a real privilege and pleasure to have you as part of the community. So where should people go if they want to know more about what you do?
Sure. Realfrequency.com. So RealFrequency.com. We're a college consulting company. Instagram is Your Real Frequency. That Instagram, we're getting better at it. I just hired an IT intern, a social media intern. He's going to put out some cool videos. We do things differently. So yeah, we've, like I said, backwards hats, t-shirts, graffiti. We have some influencers out there that are ready to pounce and start spreading the message because they were clients of ours and have graduated from college. Are so appreciative and want to send people there. So you'll be seeing that too. We sponsor a professional athlete. He's a big ADD guy. He's one of my best friends too. You'll see some of that stuff. But it really, Real Frequency, college consulting. You'll find us on Google. Look us up, hook a meeting up. Anybody, listen, Steve, the most favorite part of my job is meeting with people. So really kind of the whole point and having conversations and helping. If you book a meeting with me, it is with me. It's at the top right hand corner of the website. They can spend an hour with me. We just chat, we talk about what they need, and if they'd like to join the program, great. If not, man, great to know you. And hopefully that hour spent was really useful. You can go out there in the real world and crush it. So I love when my calendar's filled and all I get to do is just talk to people because then I can avoid doing all the taxes and the paperwork and all that other crap.
So yeah, we'll put the link down in the show notes. And it's been a real pleasure talking with you. I love what you're doing in the world and how you're helping people find their way, from that really critical transition from being a teen to being an adult and navigating their way. So really appreciate you. Really appreciate taking the time being with us today. So thanks for being here, Evan.
Likewise. Thanks, brother. Appreciate it, man.